Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The pause on interest rate hikes may be over.
I'm glad that I'm locked in. I mean, obviously I'd love to have under 3%, who wouldn't? But, this is the reality.
What it means for British Columbians bracing for another increase. Plus, a severely entangled humpback off BC's coast.
In terms of the injury and the disfigurement to the animal, this is one of the worst, if not the worst, I've dealt with.
The heartbreaking rescue and how it ended with a seemingly relieved whale. And some nautical diplomacy.
One thing led to another, and here we are.
How and why Metro Vancouver mayors ended up bonding on a yacht.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. Across the country, many mortgage holders are holding their breath. Tomorrow, we'll learn whether the Bank of Canada plans to hike interest rates again after putting increases on hold. Anita Bathe is speaking with a Vancouver couple worried about what it'll mean for their bottom line.
Stephen Lawrence's mortgage was up for renewal, and he was faced with some tough questions.
I looked at, what if I had to pay 5% interest? What if I had to pay 6% interest?
Anxious about even higher rates, he went fixed.
I'm glad that I'm locked in. I mean, obviously I'd love to have under 3%, who wouldn't? But, this is the reality.
Their new rate means he and his husband are paying $850 more every month for their condo. For now, they're making it work.
I'd prefer $850 to be going to vacations or, going to stuff for my baby.
But anyone with a mortgage that's up for renewal or coping with variable payments may need to brace themselves as speculation grows that the Bank of Canada could restart interest rate hikes.
The pause that they signaled after January was really to wait and see if they had raised rates enough. So this was a very conditional pause.
According to this economist, Canada's economy hasn't slowed enough, and the central bank will need to act.
You're risking high inflation just becoming more embedded. You're risking inflation expectations going up, and then you're risking not ever getting back to 2%.
While higher interest rates have only hit about a third of mortgage holders so far, by 2026, nearly all homeowners will be paying more for their mortgage.
They will be startled and shocked to see a massive change in payment, a massive difference in what they're spending. The 5-year rate has increased a full 0.5%.
Many Canadians may need to reset their expectations, with some experts predicting the days of record low interest rates are long gone.
A rate that starts with a 4 will become the new normal for people, and it will be really hard for Canadians to afford houses in the major cities with these kind of rates.
Markets are betting there's a near 50-50 chance that the Bank of Canada will raise interest rates tomorrow. And if not, many predict an interest rate hike is certainly in the cards before the fall. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Toronto.
Clients and advocates of BC's Safer Supply program are speaking out after calls to bring it to an end. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre recently introduced a motion in the House of Commons calling on the Liberals to fund drug treatment instead. As Angela Starrett reports, the motion was voted down, but it has sparked debate about whether Safer Supply helps those who most need it.
Those who rely on Safer Supply in BC have a message for Poilievre.
I frankly find it disgusting, honestly, that we don't have more compassion as a society for these people that are, all of them are someone's child, someone's brother, sister, spouse, or neighbor.
We could put oxygen on her if fire came.
It's the #1 cause of death in BC for those between the ages of 10 and 59.
Well, pretty much every time you go to the illicit market, you're risking your life because unless you have access to an actual drug testing equipment that's going to tell you the percentage of fentanyl in the product.
Fentanyl was detected in almost 90% of BC's illicit drug deaths. Prescribed Safer Supply was introduced in BC in March 2020 in an attempt to stop toxic drug deaths.
I've been fighting for safer access to drugs for decades.
But there's been criticism. For one, it's hard to get into the program. Out of thousands of opioid users, only 4 to 5% of people can get a prescription.
We've been saying, gotta have more access. So more doctors, more places you can get it, lower barriers, so that people can have an easier time. And then they should broaden the suite of pharmaceuticals that are available.
One BC medical director says the limited options mean some are reducing the pills to powder, to smoke or inject, which increases risk of overdose or infection.
And there's clearly resale of hydromorphone on the street. And the extent to which that is occurring, we really need to understand. Look, the price of a dilaudid 8 milligram tablet, otherwise known as a Dilly 8, on the street in the inner city of Vancouver has gone down from $10 a pill to $1 a pill. So clearly there is resale going on, and we need to get a handle on this.
Now BC's health leaders are reviewing the province's safer supply program based on data, they say, not divisive politics.
The safe supply program is very innovative and it requires to be evaluated. It may work very well for some individuals.
But clients and advocates say they want to be consulted.
They've shut the door to us. They've canceled meetings with various groups of drug users and people involved in this sector over the next few weeks.
The Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction say the meetings are on pause while it figures out next steps. Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
After an 11-day search, the body of a missing Vancouver man has been found. The Vancouver Police Department says Suleiman Kawer's body was spotted in False Creek around 8:30 yesterday morning by a boater. The 23-year-old first went missing May 25th while at Mansion nightclub in downtown Vancouver. He told his family he was on his way home but never arrived. The BC Coroner's Service and police are investigating the death. Family and supporters of a Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan man who died in RCMP custody gathered outside the Prince George courthouse today as the first 5 of the officers accused in the case entered their pleas. Dale Culver died after being arrested nearly 6 years ago. A report said he was pepper sprayed during a struggle and had trouble breathing before he died. As Betsy Trumpeter explains, the much-delayed case is being watched very closely.
Outside the courthouse, Dale Culver's family mourns, drums, and remembers.
Definitely his smile, his laugh, his wit, his heart. He was always out there to help the brothers and sisters.
Culver was the father of 3 children, the youngest just a baby when he died.
It's hard because he didn't get to see my little brother start his first day of school. He won't be able to, he didn't get to see me graduate, which is a hard pill to swallow.
2 RCMP officers are charged with manslaughter in Culver's death. Today, lawyers for the Mounties entered not guilty pleas.
It's beautiful, Laura.
Yeah.
The family of Jared Lowndes is also grieving. RCMP shot the Wet'suwet'en man dead outside a Tim Hortons in Campbell River in 2021. His mother, Laura Holland, has traveled here to support Dale Culver's family.
It's really important to me to be here because this is my people. The police and law enforcement have been killing Indigenous people.
Terry Teegee is a regional chief with the BC Assembly of First Nations. He's come to the courthouse to call for justice.
I came to support the families. Far too often, our Indigenous peoples are either killed in custody or really, I suppose, injured.
Concerns shared by the BC Civil Liberties Association.
Law enforcement forces are murdering Indigenous people, are murdering Black people. People experiencing mental health crisis are disproportionately harmed.
Hey! Solander says there are still many questions about what happened the night Dale Culver died.
BCCLA had filed a police complaint stating that the RCMP had asked people to destroy any video evidence that they had of the interaction between Dale and the RCMP.
Next month, 3 other RCMP officers are scheduled to appear here in court for their arraignment. They're charged with obstruction of justice after Culver's death. Betsy Trumpeter, CBC News, Prince George.
Well, with all this warm weather, pools and beaches might be on the mind, but ever since the pandemic, there's been a crunch to find enough lifeguards to protect those waters. As Zara Premji explains, different municipalities are getting creative in their recovery efforts.
A lifeguard on duty, a rare sighting at some beaches and pools around Metro Vancouver. But now, after a year of recruitment and recovery efforts, this pandemic symptom is easing for some municipalities.
So in 2022, we only had 35 lifeguards that returned to our outdoor pool season. This year, we have gone up to 55.
Creative recruitment paired with enticing offers, like providing training at no cost to people facing financial barriers like newcomers or retirees looking to pick up some work, has left New Westminster with a healthy hiring pool.
With the exchange of a service commitment, we provide the training for free. So it's basically a scholarship with an exchange of a work agreement at the end of it.
But despite best efforts, some pools and beaches are still without a lifeguard because there just aren't enough to keep the numbers afloat everywhere. West Vancouver saying it's trying to hire new lifeguards every 6 weeks instead of once or twice a year and cutting down training costs. But still, their number of lifeguards has only doubled from 32 last summer, and
65 is not enough for us to run the number of swimming lessons that are being requested from us.
And staff say the struggle is twofold. It's not just retaining a certain number of staff in each municipality, but it's the commitment of hours too.
Now, if you want to head into the water this summer and be a lifeguard or in the future, city staff say they still don't have the numbers they need just yet, and it's never too late to sign up. Zara Premji, CBC News, New Westminster.
Well, a bit of nautical diplomacy today with half of the region's mayors taking in a private cruise this afternoon. Yep, you heard right. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim wanted some bonding time. West Vancouver Mark Sager had a yacht, and the two paired up to invite their peers for a day on the high seas. Naturally, this is where we bring in our Justin McElroy live for some context. Justin, dressed today for the occasion, perhaps in case you got a last-minute invite?
No, not the type of thing you would bring a reporter to, but it was a situation where these are a bunch of new mayors across the region still looking for opportunities to get to know each other a little bit more, looking for opportunities to discuss politics and priorities in a place that's maybe a little bit more sedate and informal than a Metro Vancouver or TransLink board meeting. So Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim invited all of them about a month ago, saying in his tagline to the email, "Stay awesome," hoping that as many mayors could make it as possible. Now, some of them had council meetings or other things to do, but about half the mayors in the region showed up to this cruise today where they were able to talk about issues. And as Mayor Ken Sim said, when we managed to find him before boarding the boat, talk about the issues that matter to Metro Vancouver residents.
We get these opportunities where we can get together as a bunch of mayors in the region. We can talk about regional issues, be it transit, more government or senior level government funding from the province and the feds. And, it's also a time where we can enjoy a bit of the sunshine.
And he was keen to point out as well, because it is the boat of a fellow mayor, that being West Vancouver Mark Sager, it means that taxpayer dollars spent on this were non-existent. But still, certainly the optics for some might raise a couple of eyebrows today.
Okay, but team building aside, what might they have talked about that will actually impact all of the people in the region who perhaps weren't on that boat?
Well, a lot of it is just strategies on how to get money from higher levels of government and how it gets dispersed through the region. Right now, TransLink is asking for $20 billion from higher levels. Infrastructure issues in the region for wastewater treatment plants are over $10 billion as well. And it's up to all of the mayors to try and figure out ways that they can agree on terms of where they want this money to go and for how much. And sometimes those arguments can be contentious. Sometimes it's accused that Vancouver doesn't pull its weight in the region. So today, some diplomacy on the high seas to try and figure out what truly matters to them, and certainly the type of conversation that you wouldn't necessarily see in the boardroom. And again, some people might look at something like that, a 96-foot yacht, and wonder if that's the best use of people's time on a Tuesday afternoon. But I know lots of people might go, hey, this is one way that mayors can discuss things and learn a little bit more that you might otherwise not get the opportunity to do.
For sure, and I have to say they all look pretty relaxed. Municipal Affairs reporter Justin McElroy live tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uber has expanded its ride-sharing services to more BC communities today, hitting the streets in Victoria, Kelowna, and Chilliwack. Uber has been operating in Metro Vancouver since January of 2020. The company attempted to set up operations in Victoria and Kelowna back in 2020 as well, but its application was denied. At the time, the Passenger Transportation Board said the expansion would hurt taxi companies struggling during the pandemic. A second application was approved back in May. Taxi drivers have expressed concern over Uber entering the Victoria market, but the tourism industry is celebrating the news.
Customers from around the world expect a globally branded ride-sharing app. We are a world-leading destination, and our customers expect that, so it closes that gap.
Last month, Uber said tens of thousands had already signed up as passengers in the new communities. Well, you'll soon be able to enjoy an alcoholic beverage in some Burnaby parks. City Council has approved a pilot project for 4 green spaces.
Should be allowed to drink at the parks as long as people are responsible for their actions.
There's a place to drink and party and everything. Like, parks are meant for families, for children.
Adults will be permitted to drink in certain parts of Confederation Park, Central Park, Keswick, and Edmonds Park. The pilot starts June 23rd and will run till October 30th, but not everybody is on board. One city councillor says the city should not encourage an increase in public drinking because of the negative health consequences.
Alcohol is been known to cause health issues. We did receive, all of us, the council did receive correspondence from Fraser Health Authority advising against introducing alcohol in parks.
Dhaliwal added that drinking in parks will require more staffing to enforce protocols and ensure safety. He was the only councillor to oppose the pilot. A humpback whale is swimming free after being rescued last week off the coast of Haida Gwaii. Fisheries and Oceans Canada says the whale was badly tangled in fishing gear. The gear you can see here was caught around the whale's mouth and tail with ropes tightly wrapped around its body, forcing it into a C shape. The rescuers weren't able to fully remove the rope as it was deeply embedded in the whale's tail, about an inch deep. And if they tried to remove it, it could have further injured the whale.
The way the animal was entangled and not able to move in a straight line and not able to forage or even dive, this animal would have certainly died, and it probably didn't have a lot of time left.
Rescuers were able to remove most of the gear, helping it swim away with a slightly straighter body. The whale has been tagged, and the team will be following it closely. Well, Nanaimo and Ladysmith harbors are littered with abandoned boats, and locals are calling for a cleanup.
The contaminants don't disappear once the boat is built, so glass reinforced plastics, old wooden boats, yeah, they're grand, but the reality is tributylin on most of the bottoms in these old fish boats, and lead paints, and there's never one that isn't full of garbage.
The Dead Boat Disposal Society has applied for federal funding to clear boats out of coastal areas like these vessels in Ladysmith, where members estimate there are 80 abandoned boats polluting the water. Ladysmith Nanaimo MP Lisa Marie Barron echoed the call for funding in question period.
Will the Liberals immediately provide the necessary funding to First Nations, locals, to clean up these harmful, destructive vessels?
The Dead Boat Disposal Society says not only are the boats an eyesore, contaminants can harm shellfish populations in the harbors, causing long-term impacts. Well, the city of Merritt has entered level 2 watering restrictions. This means people must now limit watering to 3 days a week. Manual sprinklers can be used between 6 and 8 a.m. or 7 to 9 p.m., while automated systems can be scheduled between 12 and 2 a.m. The city says its 3 aquifers are not currently at risk, but restrictions are being put in place to protect fish populations that may suffer as river water levels lower. And if you're heading north of Nanaimo, heads up, a wildfire has closed Highway 4 near Port Alberni. Drive BC says it's due to the Cameron Bluffs fire. It's asking drivers not to stop and look at the blaze. There is no detour available right now. Meanwhile, if you are planning to hit the outdoors on the south coast this weekend, They'll have to do that without a campfire. The BC Wildfire Service says as of Thursday at noon, campfires are banned throughout the Coastal Fire Centre on all public and private land that runs from Chilliwack through Metro Vancouver, all of Vancouver Island, the Sunshine Coast, and Sea to Sky regions, and up to the Central Coast District. If you break the rules, you can be fined more than $1,000. Time now to bring in meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. Fire ban coming into place just in time, I think.
Yes, I think that really lined up with what is a hot and dry forecast over the next couple of days. Anita, we don't get much of a break Friday. It's hot and dry for this weekend. So yes, very intentional, and it is only the beginning of June. I wanted to show you the fire danger rating for today. We've been seeing this orange and red for the past few weeks. Notice the blues and greens, the low risk up towards the northwest. That's where we've just come out of half your June rainfall total with that swirling low for places like Dease Lake, rivers and creeks responding over the next 24 hours. But the rest of the province, dry, hot, and getting hotter, all thanks to this ridge of high pressure. Really, today was just day 1 of 3. It will build tomorrow for the interior. You can see the current temperatures just hitting 31 in the southern Okanagan. Not quite getting there today in the interior. You will get there tomorrow and the next day, and we may hit 30s once again across parts of Metro Vancouver. We saw it today in Abbotsford, mid-20s at YVR, but inland feeling like the high 20s. Quite a breeze as that ridge built in today. Just want to show you a sneak peek of the current temperatures for tomorrow. Breezy in the morning. It will feel hot in the afternoon, feeling like actually hitting the low 30s, feeling a lot hotter for much of Metro Vancouver, even downtown Vancouver getting close to that 30-degree mark tomorrow, and same kind of numbers for Thursday. So I'll break it all down and talk more about that Friday rain we hope we get coming up.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, think Dragon's Den, but Indigenous. The reality competition sees entrepreneurs pitch their ideas to a panel of mentors, and the Aboriginal Peoples Television Network show will film its second season in North Vancouver later this year. Take a look.
Today on Bears Lair, 3 inspiring Indigenous businesses dedicated to serving their communities will polish their pitches together before facing off in front of the Bears to win $10,000 and a shot at the grand prize of $100,000.
That is a clip from the pilot episode of Bears Lair on APTN. Today, a second season has been announced, promising to be bigger and better. Joining me now in studio is Gina Jackson, the show's executive producer and a proud member of the Sechelt Nation. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
For those who missed the first season, how does Bears Lair compare and maybe contrast from Dragon's Den?
Shows like Dragon's Den and Shark Tank are trailblazing, and I love them. But I wanted to create something that was Indigenous-based, something that was kind and uplifting and showed the diversity of different cultures within Canada. There are 18 entrepreneurs from all over Canada. So we've had Cree, Inuit, Coast Salish, Anishinaabe. We've had many different cultures that are really sharing their gifts and solving problems within Indigenous communities, whether it's on a grassroots, regional, national, or global level. My whole life has been dedicated to Indigenous entrepreneurism. What reconciliation is, we like to call reconciliation. How are you making a difference within community? How are you employing or training your community members? How are you helping the initiatives such as the youth or the elders? All the entrepreneurs that applied last year were providing a good or service that they invented or created to solve a problem within community. And that's the way we are as Indigenous people.
If people are listening and going, that's me, I am an entrepreneur, I have an idea that is helping community, how can they apply for season 2?
Season 2 is going to open on bearslairtv.com on June 15th. And what we're looking for is, yes, are you Indigenous? Do you have something that's unique? Something that is new that you think Canada would like to see? Are you providing a solution for a problem within community? Are you giving back to community? And what's your social impact? And we really want to showcase that and show Canada that the diversity and the beautiful nature of Indigenous business is crashing through barriers and stereotypes. We are being recognized, we're being appreciated, and we really want to showcase our gifts, and we like to call it co-opetition, and that's where we raise each other up. And that's what we found last year was it's not about competition. Yes, there's money involved, but it's really about being kind. It's being able to share and collaborate with each other and really show our differences and relations to nations.
A new way to collect data on wildlife using old infrastructure. We'll show you how air pollution sensors are used to protect endangered species after the break. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. The wait list to get an e-bike rebate in BC now stretches more than 7,000 names long. Yasmin Gandam has more on why this particular program is so popular among cyclists.
BC government's e-bike rebate program went live Thursday. The government website crashed unexpectedly. They received 4,000 applications in less than 8 hours, with just 9,000 rebates available for all of BC.
We have more people come inside the store to ask about the rebate program. I think a lot of people right now is registered from the government website.
Stores like Enoch in Vancouver's West End neighborhood have been flooded with orders, but the concern is not getting approved for the rebate and having to return the bike.
People want us to assemble the e-bikes. It also have some fees, some costs. So those things cannot be refundable. So I will suggest people, if they can, apply first, get approved first, and then come to the store to buy their e-bikes.
But there are many applicants worried about riding it out. Those who purchase e-bikes before receiving rebate approval won't get one.
I heard from a lot of customers saying that they are currently applying and they are on wait list. They don't know how long they need to wait.
The popularity of e-bikes has programs launching all over. The city of Coquitlam has an e-bike and e-scooter program debuting this month. 450 e-scooters and 130 e-bikes will be available to rent in the city center. But groups who have been advocating for more funding towards promoting bike usage say priority needs to be given to vulnerable groups.
Not only the ministry need to provide subsidies for buying an electric assist bike, but they also need to provide subsidies for other needs like adaptive bike that people with mobility needs need to buy so that they can also get to places by bikes. And those bikes tend to be a little more expensive. So there needs to be a bigger grant for people with those needs.
Bike store owners say it's at least giving prospective riders the opportunity to try the bikes.
So a lot of people cannot before will think about it's too much to purchase.
Once approved for a rebate, residents have 30 days to purchase an approved e-bike and claim their rebate. Even though applications are now closed, the wait list is still open for people to pedal forward. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
A team of scientists in Canada and Britain have learned that air pollution monitoring sensors also collect precious wildlife DNA. Now, these devices have been used worldwide since the 1960s. Positioned near cities, highways, and industrial sites, they suck up air that is then examined for chemicals and pollutants. Now, scientists have found that they also collect DNA fragments that can be used to identify wildlife and study changes in populations over time. Joining me live now is Elizabeth Clare, Assistant Professor of Biology at York University and one of the lead scientists on data collection for this project. Why is the discovery that air pollution monitoring stations capture animal DNA so groundbreaking?
Well, most of the techniques we use to study biodiversity are really specific to one group of animals or plants, and very few of them can be scaled up to really large landscapes. So for us, it's really exciting to find out that these networks of thousands of air pollution quality monitoring stations deployed all over the world are actually doing some of that job for us. It's a really generalist, large-scale system that's taking these little snapshots literally every day.
It's so great to have a collection of data, but how will it actually be used?
The idea is to take repeated measures over time so we can actually monitor change. And that's something that's really difficult to do with a lot of the existing techniques. The existing methods are too labor intensive to do repeat sampling over and over again at the type of frequency we need. So these samples being taken literally every day or every week in all these different places will allow us to measure changes as they're happening.
Now, some of these devices have archives going back years. What does this mean for long-term research?
Well, we're really not sure. It will depend on whether the DNA is still viable. They were never collected with this in mind. This is a truly new discovery of data that they're collecting as a byproduct of the regular operation. If that DNA has been preserved, then we may actually have decades worth of time series data on shifting biodiversity patterns, from changing ranges to the arrival of invasive species and the potential loss of populations.
Wow, and what would that mean, for someone like you who is studying this and working at it?
It gives us a whole new scale. I think of annual surveys of a small area that I study to be high quality data. The idea that I might be able to take survey data from across entire continents repeatedly over and over every week is just a scale of biodiversity data we've never considered before.
Elizabeth Clare is Assistant Professor of Biology at York University. Thank you so much for joining us live tonight.
Thank you.
It's a story of the Prince and the Papers. The company behind some of the UK's most popular tabloids now faces a lawsuit from several high-profile claimants, including Prince Harry. More on his decision to appear in court next.
In the 7 years that Vancouver's Greek community has celebrated its culture, the festivities have gotten bigger and better each year. Hundreds of Vancouverites packed Broadway Street to enjoy a little food, a little drink, and a lot of fun.
We want to thank you for coming again in such numbers to celebrate along with us and share our culture, the Greek culture. So along with us, everyone here on West Broadway will be a Greek as we are.
A number of officials were on hand to proclaim Greek Day, including Vancouver's mayor.
So I just want to wish you all a very happy day. This is the one day in the year when we all become Greeks. Thank you very much.
And filling in for the Minister of State for Multiculturalism, Senate Leader Ray Perot.
I want to bring you the greetings of the Right Honourable Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, and members of all political parties who serve in Ottawa. We want you to enjoy yourselves this afternoon. It's going to be a tremendous day, a day when we're all not only members of the great Canadian family, but we're all Greek for at least a day. And I want to say how much I enjoy being here. Kalisper Kalitiki.
Once it was made official, it was everybody's turn to join in.
Special Rapporteur David Johnston faced tough questions from MPs today while testifying at a parliamentary committee. As Rafi Boudjikanian reports, Johnston defended his reputation and his decision to reject a public inquiry into foreign interference allegations in Canadian politics.
David Johnston facing criticism in person.
As Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau described you as a lifelong family friend, a friendship cemented over many summers.
I was friends of the father of Mr. Trudeau through his life in politics.
His ties to the Prime Minister painting a target on his back for the Conservatives since March, when Justin Trudeau appointed him as special rapporteur looking into foreign interference in Canadian elections and asked him to make the call on whether there should be a public inquiry. Johnston has urged against one, landing him in this seat to explain himself.
The Conservatives just had a total of 15 minutes worth of questions, and they didn't ask a single question about foreign interference. Not a single question. Madam Chair, it was nothing more than a character assassination.
The questions eventually came, including from some of the opposition MPs whose names have been at the center of news reports alleging China targeted them for their vocal opposition to Beijing's human rights record.
Do you not see how recommending against a public inquiry undermines confidence in our democratic institutions?
What we have recommended and what we intend to do in the next 5 months is to have public hearings.
What is your concept of the appearance of conflict, and what does that mean to you?
The appearance of a conflict of interest would be a reasonable person in possession of all the true facts, concluding that a person would not be able to provide unbiased judgment on a particular matter.
Next month, Johnston intends to start public hearings speaking to intelligence officials and diaspora communities, but opposition parties have already voted for a public inquiry instead 3 times now, their judgment of his work proving difficult to sway. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prince Harry spent 5 hours in a London courtroom today. He called the tabloid press vile and blamed intrusive stories about his private life for bouts of depression. As Margaret Evans reports, the rare royal testimony is part of a lawsuit alleging some newspapers illegally hacked the phones of celebrities.
Your left, your left.
The Prince and the press.
How are you feeling, Prince Harry?
Harry, Duke of Sussex, arriving at London's High Court in the eye of a media storm that has dogged him for most of his life. He and dozens of other high-profile claimants are suing the Mirror group of tabloid newspapers, accusing them of gathering information illegally between 1991 and 2011, hacking voicemail, hiring private investigators. Harry has long campaigned against the intrusions of a tabloid press he blames for the death of his mother, Princess Diana, killed in a Paris car crash after being pursued by paparazzi. PR experts have warned there are risks for Harry in cross-examination.
And he's going to be cross-examined by a barrister with a raft of techniques that are designed purely to undermine him, Prince Harry.
Harry's suit is based on 33 newspaper articles he says contain details that could only have been gleaned illegally, all the way back to when he was just a schoolboy. In a written statement released before he took the stand, he accused the tabloids of painting him as a cheat and underage drinker, of seeking to break up his relationships by putting as much strain on them as humanly possible. And he said Britain was being judged by the state of a press and a government at rock bottom. But he'll have to do more than cite the impact of press intrusion on his life. He'll have to prove journalists actually employed the means he accuses them of and that their bosses knew about it. Aside from one instance, the Mirror Group insists its information came from legitimate sources. Harry spent 5 hours on the witness stand.
Very few people, actually relish a day in court, but I think to a degree he is relishing this. This is going to give some real meaning to his life, to his backstory, his history, his mother's tragic death. He's a man on a mission.
You're right, you're right.
That mission continues tomorrow, when Harry is expected to appear for a second day of questioning. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Thousands of people are being forced from their homes in southern Ukraine. The move comes after a dam blew up early this morning, releasing a destructive flood of water through the area. Ukraine blames Russia for the attack, and as we hear from Briar Stewart, Moscow blames Ukraine.
A new disaster in the middle of a war zone. Ukrainian crews are rescuing those stranded by rising waters. At times, they say, under shelling by Russian forces. Russian beasts, what can you say, says this woman. Ukraine accuses Russia of blowing up a section of the Nova Kakhovka Dam and hydroelectric plant to make it harder for Ukraine's military to push further south.
The vast majority of people have been evacuated. By 13 villages are now almost entirely underwater. There are shortages with drinking water across Kherson region and Zaporizhia region. And the actual dam was destroyed beyond repair.
Satellite pictures show that in recent days, the condition of the dam had deteriorated, but the deluge of water didn't come until this morning. On the south side of the river, Russian-occupied villages are waterlogged, and presumably so are some of Russia's military positions. The Kyiv regime committed an act of sabotage, claimed Russia's defense minister, who blamed Ukraine. The burst dam sparked new fears about the Zaporizhia power plant, which lies upstream. But energy officials say there's no immediate danger for now. Western leaders say it's clear who's ultimately to blame.
This is yet another example of the horrific consequences of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
What do you think of Russia saying that it's Ukraine that blew up this dam?
Oh, it's a joke.
Steve Naron is a Canadian living in Kherson. He had packed his car last night and planned to leave the area this morning, but he changed his plans because Russia stepped up attacks.
Early this morning, maybe 7 or 8, they started shelling and shelling and shelling.
Ukrainian officials say it will take a week for all the water to empty into the Black Sea. As it recedes, they're warning about a new risk. Landmines which could have been moved by the floodwaters. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Smoky skies leaving many Canadians stuck indoors today. Many communities have been left temporarily strangled by persistent smoke. We'll hear the latest from meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe after the break.
Somewhere nestled away in rural Ontario, there's a town known for its belief in vampires. A report published in the 1970s claimed that residents of the town of Wilno, a Slavic ethnic group known as Kashubians, performed rituals on babies and children that are believed to be cursed, and that they've even, on a few occasions, dug up the graves of suspected vampires to cut their heads off, saving the town from torment. Since the 1970s, the claims from this report have been covered in countless news articles among the ranks of the National Enquirer, Psychology Today, the Ottawa Citizen, and the topic was even brought up for debate in the House of Commons. Every few years, another journalist sets out once again to unearth the story of the vampires of Wilno, Ontario. I grew up in a town next to Wilno, and I've been hearing these stories my entire life. After a certain amount of time, the words vampires and Wilno became synonymous. I decided to do something that many of the journalists before me didn't dare to do. Go to Wilno to hear the story firsthand from the people that live there.
This vampire story is absolutely crap. My grandfather, 104, I asked him, and he had never heard of it. My mom, all my neighbors, everybody in the community, they say it's all bullcrap.
I don't really believe in vampires. Like, if I thought that there was, I'd put garlic outside my door for sure. Kind of unbelievable. You know, that's just how I feel about it.
No, I don't want to even talk about vampires because it's all BS, what they say. I think it's something like just to scare people, just like we say to the kids, you know, there's a boogeyman.
Growing up there, it's never been talked about. There's really no evidence that any of this really happened.
I think the Wildno people were really upset that they're noted for vampires. They didn't like it at all.
What ends up happening is, I think over time, as more publications and more media sort of pick it up, they just keep sensationalizing it and they keep the story going.
Because it sells, but it's all false. And that's something that we don't want to be known about, really, because it's just not factual. But what is factual is that we are a Kashubian community and we're very proud of it. And that's our true identity.
I was shocked to hear that the vampire story seemed to be a fabrication, at least according to the residents of Wilno. Some called themselves Polish Kashubian, while others simply called themselves Kashubian, so I asked David about it.
Kashubian, that is a Slavic nation with their own culture, their own language, their own land, which is called Kashubia in Europe, and all the traditions from literature to history, music, dance. But the thing is that we were almost wiped out when it comes to our identity.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Much of Canada is facing a new threat caused by wildfires that have been burning out of control. Environment Canada is warning of elevated health risks because of deteriorating air quality. Alison Northcott takes us to Ottawa now, where the conditions are extreme and the risk is real to everyone.
Wildfire smoke blankets Ottawa. The air quality so bad on a scale of 1 to 10, it was off the charts. This hospital had to close its operating room because its air intake system couldn't keep the smoke out. Catherine Call's surgery was cancelled at the last minute.
Obviously, I'm gutted. But, you know, I absolutely understand what happened. This is a force majeure. There's nothing anybody can do about this.
With so many fires burning, smoke is stretching far beyond those flames. In some places like Kingston, the air quality index also reached the highest risk level.
Just because you're not living close to the forest fire doesn't mean you're not necessarily impacted, because these pollutants travel a long way, and in some cases they can actually increase in their toxicity as they age and travel.
Public health officials are warning people stay indoors, close the windows, and avoid strenuous outdoor activities.
Usually we'll come outside and she can stay outside for as long as she wants, but today they told us to go outside, if we did, to wear a mask and for not a long period of time.
I work outside all day, so like my eyes get irritated and like it is a bit harder to breathe.
The smog was also heavy in and around Montreal.
I have respiratory problems, health problems, and kind of really sensitive to the air quality.
Schoolyards in Laval were empty because public health advised to keep students inside.
We wanted to get the kids away from the exposure of the small particles.
Students at this school played inside because their outdoor activities were canceled.
The concern was that somebody might actually get ill from the smog because we could smell it in the building, we could smell it in the area.
When the air quality is as bad as it is now in some areas, it's dangerous not only for people who are vulnerable, but for everyone. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Yeah, Johanna, we here in BC, no stranger to this. Not so much of it yet this year, but feels Feels like it's the norm every year.
Yes, truly. And Anita, talking to a lot of people today across British Columbia that say just hearing the stories of the smoke and seeing the pictures across Ontario and Quebec, obviously bringing them right back to the summers of evacuations and smokes. And we're only at the beginning of the season. But I wanted to show you the visible satellite from just a couple of hours ago across the eastern half of the country. The white here, those are the cloud tops where we expect cloud to be over the ground. This stripe down the middle, and you can just see the lower Great Lakes with Toronto, that should be clear skies. That's the northerly winds that's bringing the smoke down from the fires in northern Quebec. And you can just see what literally looks like an ashtray all the way out to the eastern seaboard. Expected to get worse tomorrow with that same flow. Thursday morning, Toronto may be experiencing its worst air quality ever recorded with a fresh surge of that smoke plume. But early for both sides of the country. We'll be watching that story closely. Meanwhile, the ridge is building for us, as I mentioned earlier. It's going to be the story for the next couple of days. Thursday afternoon, we're going to start to see the impacts of a low pressure system moving up from Washington, possibly bringing a few dry lightning strikes to the Kootenays for Thursday afternoon. It's really Friday that we'll get into that moisture, and there's still a lot of uncertainty as far as how far west that moisture gets. Most models still bringing some chance of rain in for Metro Vancouver on Friday, which would be great. Some of our long-range models, though, keeping that rain out and just the cloud cover in. So we'll keep an eye on that. One thing's for sure, though, getting hotter in the interior tomorrow, hitting the mid-30s, whereas we were just barely getting there today. And tomorrow across Metro Vancouver and into Thursday, will be right around that 30-degree mark inland. Quite breezy, though, tomorrow morning. Heads up by the water, close to the strait. As we head into the weekend and we get past that Friday low-pressure system, things dry out and start to climb once again. Again, this isn't a heat wave, but above seasonal by a few degrees. Lots of sunshine, though, in the interior for tomorrow, and lots of sunshine in the long range. I think we'll see that cloud sneak in tomorrow afternoon for Metro Vancouver. Still hoping for that shot of rain on Friday. Hopefully we'll have some more details by tomorrow. And then look at that, Anita, drying back out and warming back up through early next week. So hot and dry overall.
That's the theme. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Sometimes a story is right under your feet. Up next, a look at the legislature steps in Victoria, which are in the midst of a serious remodel.
I didn't know a lot about Kashubian. At the time, we were just Polish. I knew that it was Canada's first Polish settlement as well.
In 1875, when the church was being built, they for some reason sent us a Polish priest, and they made us Polish. So this is all new. It's like a discovery, right?
They told me that the vampire rituals that journalists reported on weren't true and were fabricated to make the Kashubian or Polish Kashubian story seem more interesting than the truth about their rediscovered identity.
Absolutely good feeling to know who you are. You know, living under a false identity, to me, it doesn't feel good now that I know. But at first, not knowing, you know, you don't feel it. I never knew that I was a Kashub of Kashubian heritage until I was around 46 years of age. And even in our community, we never even heard of the word Kashubian.
It took just a couple of years ago that I found I was a Kash, not Polish.
Finally, we've got a word that we can put to our identity.
And from now on, from that time when they said I was a Kashub, I'm a Kashub now. I'm not Polish.
No, it was not a good feeling to find out that your identity was basically stolen, right? If you're looking at a vampire story, basically our identity was sucked right out of us.
And I think it's given me, us, all of us, a bit of an identity. I think it's something to be proud of.
I haven't got too much to say, but I'm a proud Kashub.
I have to admit I was disappointed when I saw that I wasn't going to get the vampire story that I came for. Most of the interview subjects I approached didn't even want to talk to me after I mentioned the word vampire, but now I can't blame them. They've been dealing with journalists in search of an easy story for decades now. But the problem with an easy story, as we've seen in the case of Wilno, is that the lines between truth and fiction become blurred, and the experience of a dwindling culture can be replaced by a make-believe vampire story.
I would definitely say that sometimes the journalists and media are the vampires, because they like to spread that falsehood because it makes great television, great media story. But it's not fair to the people of Wilno, because that is not our history. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
The Talking Stick Festival 2023 Summer Reverb celebrates National Indigenous History Month from June 1st to July 2nd. A variety of performances will wow audiences in film, theater, dance, and music. For more info and tickets, visit talkingstickfest.ca. And CBC British Columbia launches The Herb Original, a new podcast for Indigenous History Month. All episodes are available now on CBC Listen.
The BC Legislature's grand entrance is getting some much-needed TLC. Century-old bricks, decayed by water and time, need to be replaced to upgrade the seismic capacity. Our video producer, Mike MacArthur, went to check out the progress.
We are looking to renew and revitalize the infrastructure here. This is aging infrastructure that's well over 100 years old and has had minimal upgrades in the last 50 years. We do recognize that this is a very public site and certainly does impact certain events like the Canada Day celebrations, which are coming up. This is, of course, also the ceremonial entrance and the exit for our visitors. We have thousands of visitors every year who do attend this site. So the steps, they are made of solid granite, and as you can see, they were not milled perfectly, and you can see the underneath of the bricks certainly has an exposed side. Each one of the stair treads is approximately 1,500 pounds. The front stair project was identified as a priority because of seismic concerns as well as structural concerns of these massive granite stair treads here that were sitting on a brick structure that was failing and aging due to water penetration. Some of them were actually able to be pushed right over and knocked out with a sledgehammer. Other areas were much more structurally sound. What we did do is look at right down to the footings, and we have replaced the footings of these stair treads, and we are now going to be reinforcing it with concrete to support the stair treads.
This building was built in 1893, so the brick wall foundation was in quite disrepair underneath. So it was a bit of an eye-opener after we got these steps off and starting to remove them, seeing how in disrepair this brick foundation actually was. So we worked pretty hard to make sure that our shoring plan was built well and we crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. The formwork is probably the most technical formwork that we've had to deal with as a company. The reason why I say that, if you look at the steps, there's a nice flat, polished tread, flat polished nosing, flat polished rise. The bottom of the step differs because it's just a carved stone. Every single stone is different. There's not one of them that's the same dimension. So every single elevation of these steps that we need to accommodate needs to be referred back to the catalog so that we can measure the exact step that's going back at that spot and make sure that that elevation is correct before we pour that with concrete.
A lot of work ahead, but very cool. All right, big news in the world of professional golf today. The PGA Tour is forming a partnership with Saudi-backed Live Golf. This effectively ends a dispute that has cast a dark cloud over men's golf for a year. The agreement combines the two entities, commercial businesses and the rights, into a new company. The announcement comes a year after Live Golf began. Players on that tour were barred from competing at PGA Tour events. The rival tours have been involved in several legal disputes. Under the agreement, all pending litigation will be dropped. And we end our show tonight with a beekeeper in Yemen who is trying to promote his profession in a country that's famous for its honey. He's doing it in a way that's creating a buzz. Oh my gosh, this is the first time I've seen this video. Okay, in his videos, the beekeeper, you can see, covers himself in thousands of bees. It's a creative way to draw attention to Yemenis honey abroad. The ongoing conflict has made it hard to find safe places for their hives, and today, Yemen produces 1/5 of the honey they produced a decade ago, and no social media post can take the sting out of that. I hope there's not a lot of stings for that man, because that is a little bit scary. All right, that is it for our show tonight on CBC Vancouver News. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.